Hello and welcome to Firstpost Spotlight, where we bring you stories that matter to you from all across the world. From breaking news to today's biggest controversies, we shed light on issues that shape our world. I'm Joshua Barnes, live from the Firstpost studios. Let's begin with the top headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says India will open up its nuclear energy sector to private investment, with an aim to strengthen innovation and further opening of the world's fourth largest economy. The death toll in the Hong Kong apartment complex fire mounts to 55, with at least 300 people still missing. Authorities launch a probe into possible corruption in the renovation project at the site of the incident. Russia's President Vladimir Putin says the country will focus on strengthening the security and counter-terrorism efforts in Central Asian countries as he announces plans to equip these former Soviet republics with modern Russian weapons. Myanmar's military frees a key aide to the deposed democratic leader Aung San Suu Kyi ahead of promised elections next month. This comes a day after the military announced amnesty for over 3,000 people prosecuted following the 2021 coup. And Pope Leo lands in the Turkish capital Ankara in his first trip outside of Italy as a Catholic leader. The Pope is expected to make appeals for peace in West Asia and urge unity among long divided Christian churches. Today, we begin with a shooting that has shaken Washington. On Wednesday afternoon, 2 National Guard members from West Virginia were critically injured while stationed in Washington when a gunman opened fire on them. The incident happened just a short distance from the White House, and it unfolded on one of the busiest travel days of the year as millions moved across the country ahead of Thanksgiving. Hours later, officials named the suspect as 29-year-old Ramanullah Lakanwal, a man from Afghanistan who entered the United States under a Biden-era program called Operation Allies Welcome in 2021. At that time, thousands of Afghan immigrants entered the US under special protections after America's chaotic withdrawal from the country. According to immigration authorities, the suspect had been granted asylum earlier this year. Media reports also say he previously worked alongside US troops in Afghanistan. And that single detail, his immigration status, triggered an immediate and sweeping response from President Trump. Speaking from Florida, the president called the shooting an act of terror and said it exposed what he described as the failures of former President Joe Biden's vetting process for Afghan refugees.
This heinous assault was an act of evil, an act of hatred, and an act of terror. It was a crime against our entire nation. It was a crime against humanity.
And then he vowed to re-examine what he called every single alien who entered the United States from Afghanistan during the previous administration.
We must now re-examine every single alien who has entered our country from Afghanistan under Biden, and we must take all necessary measures to ensure the removal of any alien from any country who does not belong here or add benefit to our country. If they can't love our country, we don't want them. America will never bend and never yield in the face of terror.
The president also branded the suspect as an animal and added that he came from what Trump called a hellhole.
As President of the United States, I am determined to ensure that the animal who perpetrated this atrocity pays the steepest possible price. I can report tonight that based on the best available information, the Department of Homeland Security is confident that the suspect in custody is a foreigner who entered our country from Afghanistan, a hellhole on earth.
After President Trump's remarks, US Citizenship and Immigration Services announced an indefinite halt to all immigration processing for Afghan nationals. This halts processing of asylum requests, green card applications, work permits, family reunification, and other long-pending humanitarian cases. The White House framed the move as a necessary security measure, but it marks one of the most dramatic escalations in President Trump's already strict immigration agenda for Afghans. Earlier this year, The Trump administration imposed a travel ban on Afghan nationals among citizens of 11 other countries. It also ended temporary protected status for Afghans, a program that shielded many from deportation and allowed them to work legally in the United States. Now, Wednesday's shooting comes amid President Trump's deployment of National Guard troops in several Democrat-led cities. Authorities say the guardsmen were conducting what's known as a high-visibility patrol when a man rounded a corner and opened fire without warning.
We're here to brief you on the tragic events that happened today at approximately 2:15 local time in Washington, D.C., where two of our brave members of the National Guard and the Department of War were brazenly attacked in a horrendous act of violence. They were shot. They're in critical condition.
Law enforcement sources later confirmed that the suspect was also shot 4 times before being taken into custody. After the incident, the Trump administration announced an additional deployment of National Guard troops to Washington, reinforcing Trump's claims that crime in the capital is out of control.
We will secure our capital, we will secure our cities. In fact, this happened just steps away from the White House. It will not stand. And that's why President Trump has asked me, and I will ask the Secretary of the Army to the National Guard, to add 500 additional troops, National Guardsmen, to Washington, D.C.
As of now, the 2 injured guardsmen remain in a critical condition, and investigators are still assembling the full picture of what happened.
Before we get started, on a somber note, we had, and some of you may have seen this on your phones or on social media, but apparently there was a shooting outside the White House just a couple of hours ago. And we're still learning everything. We still don't know the motive. There's a lot that we haven't yet figured out.
The nation's capital remains on high alert, and the country is once again confronting the intersection of security, immigration and politics, a crossroads that is shaping the national conversation in real time. Moving on to our next story. India has said it is examining Bangladesh's request to extradite former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, a matter that has gained pace after her recent conviction in Dhaka. The request, first made in December 2024 and repeated again this month, remains under review. New Delhi said on Wednesday that it is examining the matter while maintaining its support for stability, peace and an inclusive political process in Bangladesh. The same stance it took when the issue was first raised.
Yes, we have received the request, and this request is being examined as part of ongoing judicial and internal legal processes. We remain committed to the best interest of the people of Bangladesh, including peace, democracy, inclusion and stability in that country, and will continue to engage constructively in this regard with all stakeholders.
She was sentenced to death in absentia by the International Crimes Tribunal for alleged crimes linked to last year's protests. The Bangladesh Foreign Ministry said India had an obligatory responsibility under the bilateral extradition treaty. New Delhi maintains that the welfare of the Bangladeshi people will guide its actions. After the verdict was passed, Hasina said that the tribunal that passed the judgment was rigged, as it was presided over by the unelected interim government that lacks a democratic mandate. Earlier today, a court in Bangladesh sentenced ousted Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to 21 years in prison for corruption. During an interview, Sheikh Hasina reportedly had said she would return to Bangladesh only if participatory democracy is restored. She accused the current UNIS-led interim administration of endangering ties with India and empowering extremist forces, while thanking India for providing her refuge.
The most important condition for my return to Bangladesh is the same condition that the Bangladeshi people require: a return to participatory democracy. The interim administration must rescind its ban on the Awami League and allow elections that are free, fair, and inclusive. I hope this foolish ban will be rescinded. Whether in government or in opposition, the Awami League needs to be part of the political conversation in Bangladesh.
Hasina left Bangladesh on August the 5th last year and came to India after weeks of violent student-led protests forced her to resign. Her exit cleared the way for the UNIS-led interim administration, which she now accuses of mishandling foreign relations and weakening the country's stability. The interim government also imposed a ban on her party, the Awami League. Bangladesh is scheduled to hold elections in February next year for the first time since Hasina's ouster. Her son warned that Awami League supporters would block the February election if the ban was not lifted, cautioning that the unrest could escalate into violence. With Yunus in charge, protests are continuing and Bangladesh's economy is under strain after Hasina's ouster. The future of millions now sits at the epicenter of political tensions and growing instability. Staying in the Indian subcontinent, former Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan's supporters have launched fresh protests. This comes after a rumour of his death, now denied by authorities, spread on and off social media. As the rumours spread yesterday, Imran Khan's supporters, along with his sisters, demanded to see the PTI leader inside of prison. But, according to reports, they were denied permission to meet Khan yesterday. By this morning, the situation took a new turn, with Khan's family reportedly guaranteed access to Imran Khan in the immediate future, leading thousands of protesters to disperse peacefully. But so far, none of Khan's acquaintances have met him. Imran Khan's sisters maintain that for several weeks they have been denied court-mandated weekly visitation rights. The family also said there were unconfirmed reports that Khan had been moved to solitary confinement. According to reports in the Pakistani media, the arrival of Khan's sisters yesterday follows the death rumours inflamed the crowd. The protests had started as a sit-in, but it soon grew into a full-scale standoff. As the unrest grew, jail authorities issued an urgent statement denying all claims of Imran Khan's death. They confirmed the former Prime Minister was alive and still inside the prison. But the late-night denial did little to calm a crowd that had lost trust in official channels. The Tuesday night eruption followed an earlier sit-in last week, led by Khan's sisters and PTI workers, after they were denied access to him. This despite two Islamabad High Court orders guaranteeing visitation rights. In a letter to the Punjab Police Chief, the family accused police of brutal and orchestrated violence against peaceful protesters. And the details they offer paint a darker and more disturbing picture of what happened that night. According to the sisters, streetlights outside the jail were suddenly switched off, plunging the area into darkness just moments before police personnel moved in. They say this timing proves the assault was not spontaneous, but pre-planned. One of his sisters said she was grabbed by her hair, thrown to the ground and dragged across the road, leading to injuries. The chief minister of Khan's home province says his request to meet Khan were also blocked, allegedly under the orders of an army officer. And that has raised the most critical question of all. What exactly is happening inside Adiala jail, where the PTI leader remains imprisoned? Khan has remained there since August 2023, facing multiple cases. But the denial of access and the lack of regular updates have sparked fears among his supporters about his safety in custody. The false death rumour and the speed at which it spread reveals just how much distrust has built up between the state and Imran Khan's supporters. Imagine sitting in a high-end seafood restaurant. You order a plate of premium imported shrimp from Southeast Asia, the kind they proudly call exotic and world-class. But now, imagine finding out that same shrimp was radioactive. It sounds like the plot of a sci-fi thriller, except this time it's real life. And it's at the centre of a growing international scare involving Indonesian exports of shrimp, prawns and spices. Indonesia is racing to investigate the cause of radioactive contamination in a number of its exports. That has now reached products on supermarket shelves and even pairs of sneakers. Authorities in Jakarta have launched a criminal investigation after trading partners in Europe and the United States detected traces of radioactive material in multiple Indonesian exports. The first red flag emerged in July, where inspectors in Los Angeles and other ports found contaminated shipping containers, including boxes of sneakers. Weeks later, the US Food and Drug Administration issued a safety alert, warning Americans not to eat specific batches of frozen prawns from an Indonesian company. The FDA then found the same substance inside a shipment of cloves from another Indonesian exporter. In all cases, the products were immediately recalled and both companies were blocked from exporting to the US until they could prove they fixed the root cause of contamination. So, what exactly was detected? Dutch and American authorities confirmed it was cesium-137, a radioactive isotope created in nuclear reactions and commonly used in medical, industrial and research equipment. The FDA emphasized that levels found in these products pose no immediate health danger. However, long-term repeated exposure can increase risk. The investigation quickly zeroed in on one place, a metal processing facility in the Cikandi industrial estate in the westmost Indonesian province. The company, PT Peter Metal Technology, believed to be owned by China, processes scrap metal, which Indonesian officials say is the likely source of the radioactive contamination. Nearly 20 factories around the estate were impacted, including shrimp processors and shoe manufacturers. 9 workers found to have been exposed to cesium-137 were also treated in Jakarta, with authorities saying all affected facilities have now undergone decontamination. The incident has raised alarm bells across Indonesia. To prevent further incidents, authorities have moved to limit scrap metal imports and tighten border screenings. In fact, at one of the ports recently, 8 containers of cesium-137 tainted zinc powder from Angola were sent back, only to become stranded off the Philippine coast as Manila and Jakarta disputed what to do with it. Indonesian police have now formally opened a criminal investigation into how radioactive material entered the supply chain and why the factory's management reportedly left for China before answering questions. For now, the government says the industrial zone has been cleaned and export controls have been tightened. The incident has raised sharp questions about safety oversight, industrial waste management, and how radioactive material could slip into everyday goods like food, spices, and even sneakers. That's all we have on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Until then, thank you for watching.
From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, shedding light on the world's top headlines, detailed analysis on the stories that matter the most to you. Catch it all on Spotlight at 6 p.m. India time and 12:30 GMT, only on Firstpost.
Hello and welcome to Firstpost Live, where we bring you the day's top 4 stories from across the world. I'm Joshua Barnes, live from the Firstpost studios. Let's begin with the headlines. India approves a plan worth over $800 million to boost rare earth magnet production to cut dependence on Chinese imports as demand is projected to double by 2030.